The sky over Ouagadougou was still blue-gray when President Ibrahim Traoré knelt in the grass behind the palace. It was his habit to begin the day in quiet, without guards, without speeches, without noise. Just the garden, the birds, and a prayer. The dew clung to the knees of his uniform. A soft wind passed through the mango trees, brushing against his back like a whisper from the ancestors. He closed his eyes, but peace was not alone in that garden. Just behind a curtain of green hedges, someone watched. Someone holding more than a mop. Her name was Marie Tendola, a cleaner hired 6 weeks earlier. She wore the uniform of the palace staff, had the access codes to the service gates, and moved silently with a cart of rags and solvents. But this morning, tucked beneath the towels was a compact Russian pistol with a silencer attached. Marie was not a killer, not by nature, not by soul. She had a daughter in Lomé, a brother in prison, and hands worn by years of sweeping hallways no one noticed. But desperation twists the heart, and money, foreign money, had done the rest. They had offered her a life, $60,000, a new identity, and protection for her child. All she had to do was fire once, just once. She moved forward quietly, step by step. The president was still kneeling, 10 feet away, then 8. Her finger touched the cold steel. What she didn't know was that President Traoré had already heard the rustle. Not from her, she was too skilled, but from the wind itself. Something felt wrong in the air. It no longer whispered, it watched. He opened his eyes and spoke without turning. "You don't want to do this." Marie froze, her breath caught in her throat. He hadn't moved. How could he have known? "They sent you from Lomé," he said softly. "Togo," her hands trembled. The gun tilted. She began, but the words never came. In a blur of motion, Traoré spun, knocking her wrist sideways. The gun fell with a thud into the grass. Marie staggered back, hitting the hedge. He was on his feet now, standing calm, looking at her not with rage, but with something far more dangerous, understanding. "You're not an assassin," he said. She backed away. "Please, they said if I didn't, they would kill your daughter," he finished. Her eyes filled. Traoré stepped closer, slowly. "Who gave you the weapon?" She looked down. "A man from Ghana, said he worked for their embassy. He called me by my real name, knew my mother's village. He said you were destroying the balance, that you had to be stopped." He nodded once. "That's how they work. Soft hands, hard lies." From across the garden, a shout rang out. All guards were coming. "Too late. Don't scream," Traoré said gently. "Let me walk you out." He picked up the gun, slid it into his pocket, and placed his arm gently under hers. Together they moved toward the path that led into the palace. A captain ran toward them, rifle drawn. "Sir, are you hurt?" Traoré raised his hand. "I'm fine, this woman is a guest." The guard looked confused. "A guest, sir?" "Yes, take her to my study. Lock the door from the outside. No one enters without my order." Marie looked at him, stunned. "Why?" she whispered. "Because someone tried to use you as a bullet. But I see you." Inside the palace, the hallways buzzed. Word was spreading. Someone had tried to kill the president. No official statement was released, but security tripled. Doors were locked, windows sealed. Traoré had disappeared into his private study and had taken the cleaner with him. For hours nothing. Then at 11:12 a.m., Traoré emerged, calling for Captain Traoré, his head of internal security. "Run a trace on every cleaner hired in the last 2 months. Use Ministry of Labor records, not palace logs." "Yes, sir." "Cross-reference embassy guest lists. Look for names from Ghana, especially diplomatic covers. I want to know who passed through last week. And the woman, sir. She stays in protective custody. And don't call her the woman. Her name is Marie." Back inside the study, Marie sat on a velvet chair, staring at her palms. She had told him everything. The calls, the payment, the drop location, the training, how they had used her fear like a leash. But what stunned her most was not his questions. It was that he had listened. Not like a man listens to a criminal, but like a man listens to a teacher. "You know," Traoré had said, "you're not the first woman they've tried to use. In Guinea they bribed a nurse. In Mali, a waitress. Always women, always invisible. She had cried then, "Why didn't you kill me?" And he had replied simply, "Because I'm not afraid of the person holding the gun. I'm afraid of the one who gave it to them." That night the president did not sleep. He stared at a map of West Africa, with red pins across Lomé, Accra, Dakar, and Abidjan. Patterns, names, dates, an invisible web tightening. "This isn't over," he said. This was just the first knock on the door. Marie Tendola sat silently in the corner of President Traoré's private study. Her cleaner's uniform, once pristine and folded with pride, now looked like a disguise she was ashamed of. Her fingers knotted together on her lap, her eyes moving from the velvet curtains to the wooden floor and back again. The president was behind his desk, not seated, not pacing, just standing there looking at her with unreadable calm. No cameras, no guards, just the two of them in a room built for kings and whispers. "Marie," he said, finally breaking the silence. "How long have you been in this line of work?" She looked up. "Cleaning? Yes. Almost 12 years. Always in Lomé? No. Then in Ghana, then I came here." He nodded. "And when did you become involved with them?" Her voice was quiet. 3 weeks ago. "Describe them." Marie hesitated. "The man who approached me was light-skinned, spoke like a diplomat, but he never said his name. Only that he was part of a wider network's concerned about what you're doing in West Africa." "What I'm doing?" She nodded. "He said you were removing the safety net, that you were too bold, too fast. He said if you fell, it would all collapse too quickly." Traoré chuckled dryly. "So bold leadership is now a threat." Marie added, "They told me you were dangerous, that you would get us all killed." The president sighed and walked to the window. Outside, red lions were patrolling the courtyard. He watched them silently, their boots crunching the gravel. Then he turned back. "And yet, here you are, alive, and so am I." "I couldn't do it," she whispered. "Even before you spoke, I saw you kneeling. I thought about my daughter. I couldn't let her carry that shame." Traoré walked over and placed a glass of water beside her. "Do you know why I pray on the grass instead of inside the chapel?" he asked. Marie shook her head. "Because I don't believe God lives in stone walls. I believe he hears us better when our knees touch the same earth our people struggle on." Marie stared at him. "You believe in God?" "I believe in something greater than bullets and lies." They sat in silence again, until Traoré said softly, "I need your help." Marie's brow furrowed. "Help?" He nodded. "You were recruited by someone who came through our walls. That means someone inside this palace is compromised. I need you to remember everything." "I don't have the training," she replied nervously. "You have more than you know. You survived." He handed her a small notebook. "Write every detail you can. Voice, clothing, car type. The smallest memory might open a door." She nodded slowly, then took the pen. Across the palace, Captain Traoré stood in the surveillance control room, staring at the hallway footage from the last 48 hours. He fast-forwarded, rewound, zoomed, and stared harder. Something wasn't right. There was a 3-minute blackout on one camera, just outside the servants' quarters, at exactly 4:17 a.m. That was the same window Marie used to enter the garden. He called for the tech officer. "Was this a glitch?" The tech scratched his head. "No, sir. The feed was manually looped. Someone covered her exit. Find out who had access to the camera network that night. I want names within the hour." Back in the study, Marie was scribbling as fast as she could. "I remember the shoes," she said suddenly. "The man wore those sharp foreign shoes, the kind that don't belong in muddy markets." Traoré smiled. "That's good. Anything else?" He spoke to someone on a secure line. Ghanaian number, but he said he was meeting someone from Dakar, a diplomat. The president nodded. "Senegalian involvement now?" "It was just a whisper," she said, uncertain. "Enough to follow." He stepped back, thinking. "They're tightening the circle." Then he looked at her. "What did they promise you?" "Money, a new name, safety for my child." "Did they say where the money would come from?" "Switzerland, a coded bank account." The details were written on a napkin and burned right after. Clever, he thought. Ruthless. He picked up a small recorder from his desk. "Marie, I need you to repeat everything you've said." This may be the only trail we have. She nodded. As he pressed record, her voice, at first timid, began to grow stronger. She repeated the details with clarity. Names, schedules, faces, instructions. And when she finished, Traore didn't thank her like a president. He nodded like a brother. You just saved more lives than you know. That night, at 8:44 p.m., Traore held a silent meeting in the war room with only 3 people. Captain Worry, his intelligence advisor Colonel Saidu, and Cyber Chief Aminata Kia. He dropped the recorder on the table. We have a trail, he said. Captain Worry looked at him. From a cleaning lady, from someone they thought no one would ever listen to. Colonel Saidu leaned forward. You think this goes beyond Ghana? Traore nodded. It has to. They didn't just send her to kill me. They wanted her caught. It's bait, Aminata added. To distract us. Exactly, the president said. Which means something bigger is happening soon. He looked up at the clock. It's time we flipped the game board. That same hour, a convoy of black cars crossed the border into Ghana. In the last vehicle sat a thin man with round glasses and a diplomatic badge. He was reading a file with a photo of Marie inside. She failed, he whispered. He snapped the folder shut, then added coldly, time for the backup plan. Midnight came quietly in Ouagadougou, but inside the presidential compound, a storm was already brewing. President Ibrahim Traoré stood alone on the rooftop terrace, above the palace gardens where only hours earlier someone had tried to end his life. His eyes were fixed on the stars, but his mind was in the dark corridors of his own government. Someone had looped the security cameras. Someone had given Marie access, and that someone was still inside. Behind him, footsteps approached softly. Captain Traoré joined him, holding a folder. Sir, we traced the access override on the surveillance loop. Traoré turned. And Neville, sir. 3 people have clearance at that level. 2 of them were off duty. The third, Traoré hesitated. Was Colonel Malik Tano. Traoré didn't flinch. Tano? Yes, sir, head of logistics. He's worked here for 11 years. The president narrowed his eyes, which makes him invisible. People stop seeing you when you've been around too long. There's more, Traoré said. A diplomatic vehicle from Ghana entered Ouagadougou 2 days ago, but no record of it leaving. Traoré raised a brow. It stayed hidden. Traoré nodded. And the driver was registered under a false identity, one linked to a shell company headquartered in Accra, but funded out of Dubai. Foreign money. Ghana in excess. Internal betrayal. Traoré muttered. It's a perfect storm. What do we do, sir? Traoré stepped away from the edge. We don't wait for lightning to strike. We strike first. In the basement beneath the palace, Marie Tendola sat with Aminata Keita, the president's cyber chief. Aminata had a calming presence, sharp eyes, smooth voice, and the kind of authority that didn't need to shout. Marie, she said, we believe your contact may still be inside Burkina Faso, possibly hiding under diplomatic immunity. But we need more than suspicion. Marie nodded. I remember the scent. Scent? The man who recruited me. He wore some kind of cologne, sharp, expensive. I smelled it again yesterday morning, near the East Wing, around Colonel Tano's office. Aminata straightened. That's where the diplomatic car was last seen. Marie's voice dropped. They're not just using me, they're using the palace. At 2:36 a.m., Traoré led a small covert team of Red Lions through the servants' tunnels beneath the palace. They weren't in uniform, no rank, no insignia, just trusted eyes and quiet hands. Door ahead, whispered the lead lion. Traoré nodded. Keep lights off. They stopped at a storage room behind the logistics wing. Inside, a faint light flickered. The president signaled for silence, then gently pushed the door open. Inside was Colonel Malik Tano. He was seated, sipping tea, facing a man in a suit with round glasses, the same man who had given Marie the pistol. The diplomat froze mid-sentence. Malik stood up. Mr. President, he said, too casually. Traoré stepped in. Evening, Colonel. The diplomat stood slowly, adjusting his tie. I believe this is a misunderstanding. "Oh, I understand perfectly," Traore replied. "You entered my country, recruited my staff, tried to assassinate me, and now you're sipping tea with my colonel. Traore's time, with edgy. You're moving too fast, Mr. President. You're upsetting alliances that took decades to build." "Good," Traore said. "If those alliances require betrayal, they deserve to fall." The diplomat smiled. "You may stop us today, but you can't stop the plan." Traore looked him dead in the eyes. "Then I'll bury the plan." He turned to his men. "Arrest them, both." "But he's a diplomat." Traore's tone sharpened. "Diplomats don't hand out guns." The Red Lions moved fast. Both men were cuffed, disarmed, and led away into silence. At 4 a.m., Traore stood again in the war room. A map of the capital blinked with new intelligence points, safe houses, hidden comms devices, ghost bank accounts. The network was wider than they'd imagined. He looked at his team. "Today we clean house, full sweep. Every diplomat, every unverified staffer, every communication line." Aminata nodded. "And Marie, she joins us, as a witness, as a survivor." Worry blinked. "You trust her?" Traore nodded. "She did what most wouldn't. She stopped herself." By 9 a.m., Traore were rolling out quietly across Ouagadougou. Within 3 hours, 15 suspects were detained, 5 in embassies, 3 in media outlets, others in NGOs. Not a shot fired. At noon, Colonel Tano was brought into an interrogation chamber beneath the palace. Traore himself sat across from him. "No lawyers," Tano muttered. "No cameras either," Traore replied. "Just you and me." Tano looked away. "I served this country for 11 years, and you nearly ended it in one night." Tano's voice cracked. "You're naive, Ibrahim. You think Africa can rise without making enemies? I know we can't rise by betraying our own." Silence. Then Tano whispered, "They said if I helped, I could protect my family, my children." Traore stared at him. "So did I, and I still can, but not like this." Back upstairs, Marie sat in a modest conference room. She hadn't slept. Her hands trembled slightly as she was given water. Aminata sat beside her. "You did something powerful," she said. "I nearly killed a man," Marie replied. "No, you stopped a war before it started." At that moment, a staff member entered, holding a single envelope. "For Miss Tendola." Marie opened it. Inside was a letter written in neat handwriting. "Marie, your actions saved my life, but more importantly, they saved my belief in the people we never see, the forgotten hands, the invisible ones. I once believed revolutions came from generals. Now I know they come from women with mops, who choose not to pull a trigger." Ibrahim Traoré. Marie wept quietly, not from guilt, not from fear, but from something new. She had been seen. That evening, the sun dipped low behind Ouagadougou's skyline, casting long golden shadows across the palace corridors. The atmosphere inside, however, was not warm. It was tense, measured. Staff walked briskly. Security checkpoints had doubled. The president's inner circle moved like a clock, precise and silent. President Ibrahim Traoré sat alone in the strategy chamber, staring at a thick folder now open before him. Inside were the results of the morning sweeps, lists of intercepted communications, transaction trails, embassy movements. The spider web was real. He circled 3 names. 2 were confirmed operatives, now in detention, but the third was troubling. A name without a face, referred to only in code as the patron. Always mentioned in whispers, responsible for approving transfers, for recruiting not only Marie, but 3 other civilian assets across the Sahel. His fingers tapped the page slowly. The patron had not yet made a mistake, not yet stepped into the light, but he would. In a small office tucked inside the Ministry of Culture, a man in a brown linen suit closed his laptop quietly. He was in his 50s, graying at the temples, and wore a ring that bore no national emblem. He packed his documents, placed a phone into a lid-lined pouch, and moved toward the side exit. This man had no security clearance. No public profile, but he was the patron, and he had just received a message. The president is unraveling the network faster than expected. Exit plan authorized. Meanwhile, in the lower level of the palace, Marie was seated in a temporary safe room. The walls were soft gray, the bed small but clean, and a guard stood just outside the door. She had been given a radio, not for music but for updates. It was the only connection she had to the outside world. Her daughter was still in Lomé. A red lion had been dispatched to quietly extract her. They'd be reunited soon, but for now, Marie waited. The guard knocked gently. "Miss Tendola," he said, "the president has requested you." Minutes later, Marie entered the chamber where Traore sat, still hunched over the files. He looked up, tired but focused. "They called you a cleaning woman," he said. Marie blinked. "Yes. Well," he said, "I need something cleaned again. But this time it's not floors." He pushed the folder toward her. "I need you to listen to these voice clips. One of them might belong to the man who recruited you." She put on the headphones and closed her eyes. Static. A click. Then a voice. "Package in place. Cleaner has been activated. Repeat code ivory dust is green." She flinched. "That one," she said. "That's him." The voice on the phone. Traore leaned forward. "Do you recognize the accent?" Marie paused. "It's not Ghanaian. It's French. But West African French. Smooth like the elites in Dakar." The president nodded. "That fits." He turned to Captain Worry, who stood by the door. "Focus your attention on diplomatic channels from Senegal. Look for fake NGOs, independent consultants, anyone using cultural ties as cover." "Yes, sir." Across town, the patron arrived at an old theater near the University of Ouagadougou. The building had long been abandoned, but tonight it was lit with soft interior lights, just enough to cast shadows. Inside, he met with two other men. One wore a UN badge, the other, a telecom executive from France. They didn't shake hands. "We've lost 2 layers, the UN man said. The cleaning woman flipped. She didn't flip. The patron corrected. She woke up. They all sat. The telecom executive leaned forward. "So what now? If he makes this public, we're all exposed." The patron smiled. "He won't. He's too smart for that. He'll go quiet. But while he waits, we shift to phase 2. The others stiffened. "You're serious?" "I'm always serious," the patron said calmly. "We seed the media, turn his people against him. Then we wait for the next crack to form." Back at the palace, Traore met with Aminata Keita in the cyber room. She had just finished decoding a flash drive found in Colonel Tano's office. "I think we found something," she said. "Look." The screen lit up with a document labeled Stage 3, Public Trust Erosion. It was a detailed disinformation campaign. Fake headlines, staged protests, doctored audio clips, a full media war, already prepared. "They were going to break me without touching me," Traore whispered. Aminata's eyes narrowed. "And it starts tomorrow." "How?" "They're targeting the food shortage crisis, blaming your policies, inciting protests in 5 districts. Traore stood. "Then we speak before they do." The next morning, without prior notice, President Traore walked into a local market square. No guards, no motorcade, just him and Marie, both in plain clothes. Vendors paused in shock. Children ran toward him. He stood on a wooden crate and raised his voice. "Not your ruler. If there is no bread on your table, I will share mine." A silence fell. Then came applause. A woman shouted, "We saw the fake stories, but we believe what we see." Another added, "If they're attacking you, it means you're shaking the right tree." Marie looked at him. "You didn't have to bring me," she whispered. Traore smiled. "You're the proof that truth still lives in places they overlook." That night, news stations tried to run the stories, claims of failed reforms, of corruption. But they were drowned out by live footage of the president walking through his people, hugging mothers, eating street food, laughing with merchants. The disinformation campaign died before it was born. Inside the shadowy theater, the patron saw the news flash across a small projector screen. He didn't react. He simply stood and said quietly, "Now I know where he's weakest. He's heart." The morning after President Ibrahim Traoré's walk through the market, the air in Ouagadougou was different. It wasn't just the people, though they were smiling more, standing taller. It wasn't just the palace, though the staff now worked with sharpened purpose. It was the feeling that, for once, the truth had moved faster than the lie. But President Traoré knew better than to celebrate early. He stood in the war room, arms crossed, eyes fixed on a map, showing red and green dots across West Africa. "Where is he?" he asked. Captain Worry replied, "The patron left the capital last night, slipped past border control using diplomatic plates from Senegal. We traced him to a compound outside Dakar. Safe house? Likely. Or a nerve center. Intel says he's regrouping." Traoré nodded. "They failed to break us publicly, so now they'll come back in the shadows. Should we go after him?" The president thought, "No, not yet." Aminata Keita spoke up. "Sir Marie's daughter has arrived. She's in the courtyard." A pause. Then the president smiled. "The first real one in days. Bring them to the south garden." Under a tamarind tree behind the palace, Marie Tendola knelt and held her daughter tight. The girl, no older than 8, clutched a stuffed giraffe in one hand and her mother's collar in the other. President Traoré approached them slowly, keeping a respectful distance. "She's safe now," he said. Marie stood and wiped her eyes. "I never meant to bring this here. I never wanted her to see any of it. But she should," Traoré replied. "Because this is what strength looks like. A mother choosing truth over fear." Marie's voice broke. "I thought I was a nobody, a cleaner." He stepped closer. "You're the woman who saw the knife in her own hand and chose not to use it." Then he leaned down to the child. "What's your name?" The girl answered.
Almia.
Traoré smiled.
Almia.
"You have a brave mother. One day, Burkina Faso will know her name." At dusk, a private intelligence update reached the palace. A drone over the Senegal compound had picked up a signal. The patron had made contact with a known private military group. Their mission, Phase 3. Objective: destabilize Mali, push fighters into northern Burkina Faso, spread chaos along the fragile Sahel belt. The goal was no longer assassination. It was exhaustion to overwhelm the government and drain the will of the people. Traoré stood in silence as the team reviewed the intel. Then he said, "We need allies." That night, the president boarded a military transport plane with no markings. Alongside him were top commanders from the Red Lions, Aminata and Captain Worry. Their destination, a secure airfield in Niamey, Niger. Waiting there was General Souleymane Diallo of Mali and Commander Issoufou Mahamadou of Niger. 3 nations, 1 cause. Inside a plain room lit with a single lantern, they huddled around a wooden table. "They're coming for all of us," Traoré said. "Not with tanks, but with whispers, bribes, confusion. If we fight alone, they'll pick us off." Diallo replied, "And if we fight together, we change the ending." Traoré said. They each placed a hand over the map. The pact was made. The next morning, Operation Sovereign Flame began. In 24 hours, joint forces from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger stormed 4 illegal installations. 2 radio towers spreading fake news, 1 underground money wire center, and 1 mercenary base, disguised as an agricultural NGO. In Dakar, the patron received word. "They're uniting," his assistant said. Fast. The patron didn't speak. He simply walked to his private archive, opened a drawer, and pulled out an old faded photo. It showed him in uniform, 30 years younger, standing next to a French general and a man with a diamond company patch. "This region used to be ours," he whispered. "Now they want to take it back." His voice hardened. "Then let them drown in their pride." But what the patron didn't know was that President Traoré had planted a digital trap. One of the intercepted Phase 3 messages contained malware designed by Aminata's team to breach the patron's satellite relay once it was forwarded. At 2:18 a.m., the palace server pinged. Aminata shouted, We have him. Signal breach confirmed. He's inside a coastal villa, east of Dakar. Traore didn't hesitate. Scramble the extraction team. I want him alive. 6 hours later, under a sky heavy with morning mist, a quiet villa was surrounded. The Red Lions moved fast, disabling power and communication. The patron tried to flee through the basement. He didn't get far. President Traore entered the villa after the takedown. In the study, the patron sat cuffed, blood on his lip, eyes sharp. You, he sneered. Me, Traore said. You think this is over? No, I think this is the middle, but it's the middle we survive. You inspired them. The patron spat. That's the real crime. Then I'm guilty, Traore said, and I'll inspire more. He turned to leave, but before walking out, he looked back. You tried to break a country, but you gave it purpose. 1 week later, back in Ouagadougou, President Traore held a quiet press conference. No grand podium, no music, just him and a mic. This war wasn't fought with guns. It was fought in silence, in shadows, in small decisions. He looked into the camera, and we didn't win because of our weapons. We won because of the people who chose the light. He paused, like a woman named Marie. In the crowd, Marie sat holding Amia's hand. Cameras turned to her. She looked down, overwhelmed. Traore raised his hand. Let the world know this. In Burkina Faso, every voice matters, even the ones that sweep the floor.